In my Lego kingdom, a reckoning is upon the land. The evil Lord Zaktu has used his brainworms to plant in the minds of the factions of good that he has been entirely defeated, when in reality he is busy rebuilding his armies, and more critically has sent his elite squad of vampire assassins, armed with their deadly and magical black swords, in a plan to assassinate Supreme Commander Dragonswald, leader of the armies of the Combined Kingdoms, the political leader's first citizen reign of the Forestmen, and the Elvish ambassador Anton, and even the Emperor himself. But unknown to Lord Zaktu, there are forces of good watching. 3 powerful wizards. First, the Wizard of the Woods, who, with his magical axe and staff, is able to summon the plants and wildlife of the forests to fight evil. Next, the Wizard of Fire, who, with her sword of righteousness, can control the sun and its fire, harnessing it to fight for the forces of good. And finally, the Wizard of the Night, able to block out light by summoning darkness to enshroud the enemies of good, wielding as part of his powers the Blade of the Eclipse, forged by elven masters in the days of the beginnings, and who can also summon the power of shooting stars in his very hand. These 3 wizards observe Lord Zaktu's plans of assassination and rush, all 3, towards the heart of the kingdom in an effort to thwart these evil plans. Will the forces of good succeed? Will the forces of evil be defeated once again? The answer lies in the future, and no one can be sure of the outcome. Hi, I'm Tom Bray since 1954. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week, I just wanted to give myself a minifig mock challenge. So I gathered all the 12 figures from the Dungeons and Dragons Minifig series, and I set down some rules for myself, and here they are. I decided to make 3 mock minifigs, only of the pieces of these original 12 Dungeons and Dragons minifigs. Now, I only chose 3 because I didn't want to be overwhelmed, because there are a lot of pieces in these 12. But I did want to contain myself to not going into my boxes of parts and gathering from other Lego figures to build these mocks. I wanted to just show everybody what you could do with the original 12 Dungeons and Dragons minifigs and just their parts, if you mixed and matched and used your imagination. So that's what I did. But first, let's take a look before we see in detail and in close-up what you just saw in my little lore prologue here. Let's see the original minifigs in their original state and just review them quickly. First, there's the Dragon Paladin, the Druid Halfling, the Vampire Vlad, the Necromancer, the Witch, the Dwarf Barbarian, the Warlock, the Sorcerer, the Mind Flayer, the Lady of Pain, the Ranger, and the Elf Bard. So there they are in their original form, and I built them out so that I could see them all assembled in front of me. And then I took them all apart so that I could get to the parts and mix and match. And using only these pieces, I set out to create 3 original mocks. I also let my imagination run wild. I didn't want to limit myself to a head being a head or etc. I wanted to just do what my imagination said to do, and do something that would fit the lore that I was creating for these characters once I hit upon a lore and decided what to do. So let's take a look at what I came up with, and let's start with the lore. So first of all, in my mind, I had a kind of seven samurai, Magnificent Seven, A-team kind of vibe, with characters that each had a special power and that worked as a unit to come to the rescue of something or someone, part of the kingdom, whatever, kind of like the A-team did every week in the TV show, kind of like the Seven Samurai would come to the village and protect it. That was my idea behind this. I wanted them to be very old and ancient. I wanted them to be outside the realm of kind of just normal beings. I wanted them to have primordial powers to be able to control elements like fire and the sun and the forest creatures and the night, the darkness, to be able to fight for the forces of good. And so I decided that they should be wizards. I mean, wizards seemed just appropriate to me. It seemed a way to encompass both the ancient and the mysterious and to give them those primordial powers. Now, even though they were wizards with primordial powers, I also wanted them to have a special weapon that they could fight hand to hand with if they needed to against the forces of evil. But I wanted those weapons to have something special about them that would strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. So that's what I had in mind when I came up with the lore that I built for each of these. I knew that I was going to give them a magical power, and that might be manifested in a staff or fire in their hand or something like that. But I also wanted them to have a weapon. And again, it had to be a weapon that was part of the parts of the original Dungeon and Dragon 12. So let's look at these one by one in more detail, and let me show you what I came up with. And the first mock that I made was a figure that I called the Wizard of the Woods. And as you can see, I leaned heavily on the druid figure for this, the halfling druid. Now, the Wizard of the Woods is able to summon plant and wildlife of the woods at their command for the forces of good. So as you can see there, the headpiece is the halfling druid. The head is the druid. The torso is even the druid. But the legs I took from Strahd the vampire. The staff is a combination of the druid and paladin elements. And the cape is druid. And now the weapon is a magical axe, which I got from the dwarf barbarian, but I put a little leaf on top of it to kind of fit in with the vibe I was going for of summoning and controlling forest creatures. And that's from the druid as well. So I'm really pleased with this figure. Are the colors exactly what I would like them to be? Maybe not. I had to stick to the figures from the original 12 because that's what I set out to do. I could probably find better legs within my kit, but, there's probably some Ninjago legs that might fit this better. But I'm really happy with what I came up with. I have no complaint. This was really fun to do, and that's the first of my wizards. Now, here's the second, which is the Wizard of Fire, and I'm probably most pleased with this, and mainly because of that kind of ridiculous head that I came up with, which is, of course, as you can see, is the cauldron from the witch figure. And what I really love about it is it's reminiscent to me of the Ghost of Christmas Past from A Christmas Carol, from Dickens' Christmas Carol, where he's described as having a jet of bright, clear light shining from his head. And that's what kind of gave me the idea of this, that there's, fire of the sun coming out of this creature's head. And so I borrowed that head from the Cauldron of the Witch and the fire from the Dwarf Barbarian, the collar from the Dwarf, the torso from Vlad the Vamp. The body is that orange body from the Lady of Pain, which I really loved because it was orange, and I thought it was most appropriate. The Sword of Righteousness is from Vlad. And, of course, I grabbed the tail from the Sorcerer because I think an orange tail really fit this character really well. Again, I'm really happy with it just because of the fire nature and the fire coming out of its head and the fact that it just has an otherworldly vibe to it because it doesn't have a normal face. So that's the second of my three wizards. The third of the wizards is the wizard that I call the Wizard of the Night, who's able to block out the sun, summon darkness to fight for the forces of good. He's kind of a mysterious figure because he straddles the line of good and evil because he harnesses the darkness. So somewhere in his past, he decided to turn away from the dark and use his powers for good. He carries the Blade of the Eclipse, which was forged by elves in my lore. And, so he can summon an eclipse to cast the world into darkness at any time. But he also carries the power of a shooting star as a weapon in his hand. And I thought that was kind of a cool touch, if I do say so myself. The head's from the sorcerer. The body is from the Mind Flayer. And now the left arm, I have two different arms here. The left arm is from the Warlock and the right arm from the Mind Flayer. I did that because I wanted those two different color gloves. I wanted the purple glove holding the shooting star element. The shooting star, of course, is from the sorcerer. The weapon is the Warlock's. And the cape is from Vlad the Vampire. So there you have it. Those are my three original MOCs using only parts from the original 12 Dungeons and Dragons minifigs. And I'm just had so much fun doing this. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me know in the comments what you think. And let me know in the comments if you're building your own MOCs just using the Dungeons and Dragons parts. Again, I wanted to show how versatile these parts can be. And could they be better? Yeah, maybe the next ones I do will be better, but I'm pleased with them, and I had a really good time doing them. So until next time, thank you so much for your support, and happy building. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.